week's sad tweet comes from @Smith Hart 1, the oldest sibling in the Hart family. Some might say the black sheep. I think I've heard him referred to as that before, Smith Hart. Smith Hart piled on the Vince Russo hate during the week. Vince Russo was getting a lot of very hateful messages and tweets from people. And Smith Hart decided that he was going to get in on it. And on Monday night, this was during Raw, he sent this series of tweets to Vince Russo. He said, "Congratulations @Pyro Ballyhoo. Not only did you murder my brother, but you've successfully killed 2 wrestling promotions. Since I've ruffled a few feathers, I'd like to make it clear. I'd like to challenge Russo to a fight at Bound for Glory, with the proceeds going to Owens Foundation. If nothing else good can come from the destruction of TNA and the loss of jobs, perhaps raising money for a worthy cause would be." Now, I'm not one to necessarily disagree with his comments about Vince Russo having a hand in the destruction of 2 wrestling companies. I think we could all agree that there is some truth to that. Accusing him, though, of being a murderer, that's taking it a little too far. Now, I know it was his brother, so he feels very strongly about it. Who am I to say? But there's never been any evidence that Vince Russo had any sort of direct involvement in Owen Hart's death and forcing him to do the stunt. I mean, there's a lot of stories that have come out that don't paint WWE in a very positive light. At the end of the day, that rests on Vince McMahon. He calls the shots, not Vince Russo, not anybody else. You know, I think during the trial when it was either the trial when Martha sued them, or I think WWE may have sued the manufacturer of the harness and the pulley that released Owen and caused him to fall. I think it came out that what happened is WWE wanted him to do this stunt. Now, Owen had lowered from the ceiling before. He had done it at least a couple of times on TV. It's not like he never did it before, even though apparently he was very nervous and didn't want to do it. And I think their idea was they wanted him to lower from the ceiling, but then it was planned that he would fall, but obviously not from 80 feet up. He would lower to a safer distance, but then would kind of fumble around and would fall, and it would make it look like he was kind of a goof. I think that was the idea. I think this is what supposedly came out during one of these trials. And the company that they had been using to do the stunt previously said, no, we're not doing that. Screw that. I mean, that's not safe. We don't want to have anything to do with that. So instead of just abandoning the whole stunt, they said, well, fuck it. If you're not going to do it, we'll find a company that will. And I think they then found a company that they had never used before, and I think that was the issue. So it's a very kind of complicated mess of things. I think to say that you murdered my brother, I think is just way out of line. And God knows I've said a lot of shit even on this show here today about Vince Russo, but I wouldn't go so far as to call him a murderer. And then to make it worse, to go ahead and then follow up on that by tweeting, well, I'd like to wrestle Vince Russo in a match at Bound for Glory. It's such a desperate attempt for attention. It's pathetic is what it is. And that's what makes it this week's sad tweet. It's one thing, again, to accuse the guy of murder and then to follow up by saying, hey, I want to wrestle you at a TNA pay-per-view, and it'll be for charity, of course. It's like, it's such a see-through cry for attention is what it is. It's pathetic. So that's this week's sad tweet.